The next center on the list of free agent trade deadline. I'm all over the place with these videos. I've got to get it together. Also, might have to get it together. Colton Sissons having a kind of down year when it comes to production, but is an actual center and can win an actual face-off. So those are enticing for the Avs. As a side note, would also take a guy who absolutely kills the Avs off of the team that he plays for and add them to Colorado. Is Sissons really a legitimate option for Colorado at this deadline?
I don't. Nashville's appetite for moving on from guys should be pretty high. And Sissons, I think what appeals to me about Sissons and why I had him as high on my list, the money that he makes is very reasonable, so I'm not too worried about that, even though I think there's another year left on it. But you're talking about a very versatile forward that has played all three forward positions throughout his career at different times, and he has been able to successfully moonlight up in the Predators lineup when they've had injury issues. In Colorado, that's obviously, given their injury issues, that is obviously something that appeals, but really we're talking about this would be a fourth line center day one, in my opinion. You bring him in and your center depth with Drury and Sissons at your 3-4 is much better than how I feel about Drury Kelly, because I continue to maintain that Parker Kelly is not a center, no matter how much the Avs try and continue to pretend. And putting Kelly at wing in his natural spot, I think just improves your lineup there. It improves your forward depth a little bit. And with Sissons, he's having a little bit of a down year offensively. The 15 points through 55 games is not going to jump out as a major improvement to Colorado's depth. True facts, fair enough, get it. But a really good face-off guy and a guy that's handled a lot of situations throughout his career. I think that he also plays with the kind of jump and the kind of physicality that you really want out of that bottom line. And this is easily, like, acquisition costs should not be very expensive, and contract wise more expensive than you'd like for a fourth line center. But if he also has to end up somewhere else in your lineup, we know he can do that. And the skating, all of that, he fits Colorado's identity well enough that I'm comfortable overpaying him in money for a year.
Two things I can add that I like about him is, obviously Jack being a lefty center for a key draw. He's a righty center. If Mac's not interested that day, I know Mac's a righty, but if Mac's not interested in taking faceoffs, we all know that, he hasn't been the greatest. Now you got a real option to take a righty faceoff. Very important plays in playoffs. One play can change a series. That's why I like him. I also like him because I think he's been a good playoff performer. Forget about points or whatever. I'm talking about bring your heart rate up, bring your intensity up, bring it up, crank it up a notch in playoffs. And I think he's played in big games. That's what I like about him. And I think, yes, you're right. He is a good fit. Then you put Parker, that I really enjoy, on the wing, more his natural position. I agree with that point.
I think in some ways Sissons is a guy where maybe you're looking a little bit more at the Avs reshuffling the depth of their forward core as opposed to directly adding to it. Sissons, a massive PK guy, can do some of that for you. If you're looking to move out one of those other depth forward pieces, maybe you slide Parker Kelly to wing. Maybe that's a signal that the Avs are looking to move on from a Miles Wood. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but I'm saying a guy that provides as much flexibility as Sissons does allows you to maybe move some other pieces around.
Yeah, and definitely in-game usage, it would change things because you would have Colton Sissons and Jack Drury as face-off guys that you feel comfortable with on a penalty kill. And then you're using Kivi Ranta, Kelly, Logan O'Connor, Arturi Lehkonen, Val Nichushkin, whoever, whatever wings you decide to put with them. But you're not just conceding the ever important power play face-off.
We lose the face-off. Yeah,
exactly. You're actually competitive with it. I know Colton Sissons' numbers on the penalty kill have been bad for a number of years, but winning faceoffs is important in that spot, so he can win the faceoff and then they can clear the puck and then, whatever. Go from there. But that I think is a meaningful addition to their lineup. So we're talking about like a guy that I think helps them in a lot of like small ways. We're not talking about this drastically changes it. We're talking about going from a guy that's 35% on power plays or on a penalty kill face off to 55%. Like that's a lot. You're turning it into a true coin flip, and when you win that coin flip, great. When you lose it, you're still in the same world that you were before. So what does it matter? But you're trying to win, 1-2 extra face-offs every game, and the additive benefits of that throughout the game, where you clear it instead of you're defending for those 40 seconds, because you lose that face-off, you usually are defending until they either get a shot on or they make a mistake somewhere. And we know that can be anywhere from 10 seconds to 45 seconds. You win the face-off and you clear it down, it's just so different. And so this is one of those really in-the-weeds additions, but I think would be really helpful and important for them. And unlike a lot of the guys that we have on this list at forward, is a guy who stylistically fits Colorado really nicely. And the money isn't, again, $2.8 million is too much money for who he is as a player, but you're talking about it's maybe $1,500,000 too much, and it's for one extra year where I can just live with it. I would rather have Colton Sissons them go out and sign another Parker Kelly type in this summer, where you're just
I agree with that, yeah.
Or we're talking about at the trade deadline once again looking for a fourth line center next season. I would rather let's just stop. Be done with this, please. Thank you.
Sisson's a little bit interesting. A pretty good shooter, right around 12% for his career. But I do have a bit of concerns about his ability to drive play as an individual. He's a guy who's reticent to shoot at times. And if you're looking for a guy to really push the play in the Avs depth forwards, I don't know if he's that guy. Now, they're depth guys. None of them push the play that much, or they wouldn't be depth guys. But I do wonder if maybe there's a guy who can add a little individual offensive punch a little bit more than someone like Sissons can.
We shall see.
We shall see. That is the question. If you know who the Avs are trading for, give us a call, because I'd love to know. Yeah. We will wrap up this video there. Plenty more to come on the trade board, so go check out the next video or the next player on the list in AJ's article. Trade deadline frenzy. The Avs trade board continues. We talked about a couple of guys who are maybe underperforming with upside on this list. How about a guy who's having a career year in Ryan Donato, already nearly at the 20-goal mark as of the time of this recording, and is producing at a solid clip. Also affordable in the contract department. He'd be a rental for a $2 million cap hit this season. And the other thing that fits in with some other guys, is Ryan Donato really a center? Is he really? Probably not. But he could add some offensive punch to the Avs' depth.
When we talk about is he a center, he's winning faceoffs at 45% clip, so he's an Av already. When you're talking about him, he's shooting at 15% right now. He's got 19 goals. His previous career high was 16. Over the last 6 seasons, I think he's averaged 12 goals per year.
Yep.
So you are talking about a guy that is greatly overperforming his career numbers here. Ice time, very different. He's averaging 15 minutes per game in Chicago this year. The rest of his career, it's been right in that
13-ish,
12, 13 range. Yeah. So he's seeing more ice time. He's getting more responsibility. This is one of those guys. Is he actually breaking out? Is this the prime? He's 28 years old. Is this the big breakout where he's going to be at the peak of his powers for the next 4 years? Or is he getting a bunch of empty calorie numbers because he's playing on a bad team and he's getting minutes he would not get other places?
Yep. And that's what it is with Teddy there. Good old Teddy. you got to be careful. I know his name's Ryan. I know. You guys know my thing. Teddy's playing really well this year, but I call that a good player performing on a bad team, right? And that's, you got to be wary of that. So when he's coming here, you guys understand, you guys know, I say it all the time, good ice, bad ice, right? He's not going to get that great ice here. He's not. He's going to get decent ice, but not the great ice, and he's just like his dad, Teddy. They're hungry to score goals. Teddy Donato is hungry to score goals. He's hungry to score goals. You can tell, like, around the net, he's like, I'm going to put that puck in. You know what I mean? And you can tell, like, he scores a goal and he's happy. You know what I mean? Like, it's, again, who's not happy when they score a goal? But this guy's really happy. So I think he's done well. I think he's put himself in a lot of conversations, and I think he's put himself in, quite frankly, probably 14 to 16 teams looking to add for the playoff run, to add, because he's been good. He's been really good. Smart kid. Just sometimes not flashy, but effective. And again, just be weary of the good ice that he's getting there on a bad team. Other than that, I don't mind him.
Go ahead.
Certainly, a guy hungry to score goals feels like it fits the bill at the moment for something the Colorado Avalanche might be interested in.
Yeah, and we look like there's no way around the fact that his goal scoring the percentage this year is very high compared to the rest of his career, and the results are comical compared to the rest of his career. But also, you do look at this, the one thing, and coming into this season, I remember talking about this guy in the past and thinking he was undervalued because this is a good goal scorer. Mm-hmm. He's a good goal scorer in a depth position. Okay. That fits kind of what the Avalanche could really use right now. It's not like, I don't think he's a very physical player. He's not like an overly physical guy. We're not going to confuse Ryan Donato and Trent Frederic. But I also don't think, I also don't think that you would consider him to be soft. Like he engages, and I think that is he's
not a skill player pretending to be a bottom six guy, right? He understands how to play in that spot.
Right. He has carved out a nice little role for himself as this guy that he should be in your middle six somewhere. Really, like in a Colorado world where their top six forwards are healthy. He's with Ross Colton and Jack Drury on a third line. You feel much better about that line, right? Like you're like, okay, hey, there's a little bit of goal scoring punch here if they could actually ever score some goals. But that helps. And then we know, having seen him this season, we know in a pinch when the next injury does crop up, if you need a guy to move into your top six, he's capable of that. So there's value there. It's not a hard sell to say, hey, Ryan Donato in Colorado. The hardest sell for me personally is the skating. It's not a great fit, and he doesn't play at the pace that the Avalanche like to play.
Neither does Brock Nelson, and you love that guy. So
I do love Brock Nelson, but Brock Nelson's also a much better hockey player.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
It's with Ryan Donato. We are like this is a solid middle of your lineup guy that can help kind of beef up that midsection of it. And it's twofold, right? Because he gets into the lineup and it pushes another guy that maybe shouldn't be in your lineup out of it. Great.
Yeah.
That helps. If you wanted to put him at the third line center and make Jack Drury your fourth line center, cool. You can have another center that loses a bunch of faceoffs, just like they do now with Parker Kelly. Fine. Like I'm not gonna be upset about that, but given the skating deficiencies that he has in Colorado, him playing along the wall would make more sense to me.
I agree with that take on it. The other thing I will say is Donato outperforming his career numbers this year. Yes. Is a 15% shooting percentage unsustainable and outrageous? Not really. I'm not saying he will necessarily keep it up because the track record's pretty long. We know who he is. But if he were to stay hot this year and shoot that, it wouldn't blow anyone away. So if the Avs have underlying metrics that they look at that say that might be a little bit more sustainable, maybe you have a little bit more interest in someone like him continuing to play at that level. The other side of it is they might have metrics that say, hey, it's going to fall off, and then maybe you should stay away.
Defensively, he's not been very good, but again, when him playing in the center of the ice as much as he has, he's not a center, man. So
it feels like you stick him next to Jack Drury for that exact reason, right?
yeah, and you hope that some of the defensive stuff gets a little bit better when he actually plays along the wall. His career would not seem to suggest that that's going to be the case. I don't think it's going to matter. He's just not a very good defensive player. But offensively, he's driving play, and that I think is where the intrigue comes from Colorado. The finishing, yes, 15% is not like, Arturi Lehkonen earlier this year when he was at 23% or something. We were like, come on.
Yeah.
15% isn't in that level, but he's a career 10% shooter. So for him being 15%, that's why his career year is happening, right?
Correct.
And combine that with the big jump in ice time, this is just basic opportunity right here, and why you do get a little bit nervous about guys like this, and that when he goes back to being a depth guy, he goes back to being a 12-goal scorer and not a guy that's on pace to score like 25 goals this season.
Yeah. All right. That is one of the options for depth scoring out there for the Avs. There are plenty more to come that maybe you have a little bit more confidence in. So we'll move on to those in the next video on the list. Trade deadline frenzy continues even. Trent Frederic, number 16 on the board for the Colorado Avalanche trade board. Look, the Avs, I think y'all in the moment as these are coming out over the days leading up to the deadline feel like the Avs need depth scoring. Trent Frederic hasn't produced great this year, but you look just 1 year back and this is a 40-point guy. Now, he's probably not going to do some of the things your traditional centers give you, but if you're looking for a physical presence in your depth at center, maybe that's Frederic. What do you guys think? What do you guys make of Frederic as an option for Colorado?
The thing with Frederic is that he's not really even a center, honestly. If we're being honest here, he's terrible at faceoffs, and with Jack Drury there, he's probably a better fit on the wing, playing where Miles Wood currently is. And in my opinion, that would be a significant upgrade. Again, 15 points through 56 games right now, but he is a guy who did score. He has 35 goals over the last 2 seasons. Even this year where his scoring is down, he still has 8. So, and we know that what's gone on at Boston has been kind of a mess, but I think that the physical presence, again, but talking about playing with emotion, game of passion, all those things, boy, Trent Frederic has that aced. His physicality is unquestionable. He's one of the more physical wings, one of the more physical forwards in the entire NHL. And you put him into a depth. This is a guy who would have been a tip-top trade deadline conversation for us had the Avalanche not had several forwards underperform this season. I had several players underperform this season. This would have been a guy that we would have been all over, and I think would have been in the top 5 of our trade lists. But he's had kind of a down year. But at 20, he's 27. He just turned 27. He's a free agent this summer. This is a guy that the Avalanche should be acquiring to try and keep for a while because he's an animal. This is a big time beast.
Yeah, you're right. A beast. He's a beast. I love. He's combative. You know what I mean? Like he just likes. He drags people down to the fight. He does. He just does. He's very passionate. He's very sandpaper. All the names all the words you want to use to a little bit of bite. The Avs are missing a little bit of that. Here's what I'll say about his down year. In my book, the Boston Bruins are all the forwards are all playing out of whack, and we saw it with the Avalanche in this season. You know what I mean? They don't really have a real number one center. You know what I mean? Zucker's not a number one center. Elias Lindholm's not a number one center. So everyone's kind of playing out of whack. And they haven't really scored any goals. They haven't been good offensively. Their decore's been decimated, especially lately. So it starts on the back end. And, he's having one of those years, and maybe he's one of those guys who's struggling with the last year of his deal to, how to put it together. It's not from a lack of effort, but hasn't put it all together like he has. First round pick, Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin product. He good person, 27 years old, jam. I don't know. He's a little bit of a poor man's Sam Bennett for me. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I've always looked at him. Don't ask me why. Sometimes mentally you compare guys to other guys, and I'm not saying he's going to get 80 points like Sammy could maybe one day in the NHL, but that's why I said a poor man's Sam Bennett, but he's exactly what the Avs need, you know what I mean? But you're right. It'd be a little bit better if he was better at faceoffs. He was better at this, better at that. But you're talking about a fit and a need. The Avs need someone like that up front right now.
The list of things the Avs need up front is pretty long, so I think there are a number of options there. But look, guys like this, go ahead.
I just one really quick thing I want to touch on from what Eric said there. I think the fact that Sam Bennett is a tried and true center is the reason why he's much higher on this list than Trent Frederic, who is genuinely he's a wing. He's not a center.
Yep. Yeah. These are interesting picks. At the deadline, look, the Avs historically over the last handful of years have been pretty good at targeting guys that have upside that can find usually an extra bump in Colorado. I think that's where you're looking for success with someone like Frederic. His contract is reasonably affordable, $2.3 million. Is technically a rental deal, so you would have to negotiate a new one if you're looking to keep him around. But again, options for the Avs that are not going to break the bank in multiple ways. Frederic falls into that category. So who knows what they actually end up doing, but these are the types of names that are going to be they're running down their lists on guys that they have to make a decision if they want to go for or not. A couple more guys like this coming up on our list too. So keep it locked in here. Go to the next video in the playlist or scroll up to the next guy on the list in AJ's trade board piece. And you'll probably be hearing a similar conversation in some ways in the next video. DNVR Avalanche trade deadline frenzy. Number 18 on our trade board is Jason Zucker. Look, imagine a world where you aren't playing to fit. You don't care about positional situation on the Colorado Avalanche. You just want a player available that is producing at a high rate to help the Avs score goals. Jason Zucker might be that guy. Experienced not just in the league, but as a deadline rental type of player. That's what he would be. Is a bit expensive with a $5 million deal, but presumably you could get Buffalo to retain on that thing. And frankly, he's scoring at a great pace this year.
Yeah, I mean, with Zucker, again, as you mentioned, I think the real rub here, the stylistic fit, he's not a good enough skater for what the Avalanche really like to do, but he can still skate enough to skate his his way to the front of the net, park it there, and bang home rebounds and set up shop. And the Avalanche need that. They don't really have that. That's been effective anyway. I mean, Ross Colton and Miles Wood have not. That has not translated there. But Ross Colton, since coming back from injury in December, he has 5 goals in 30 plus games since that happened. And so we can't continue to sit here and pretend like Ross Colton's been that guy. So with Jason Zucker, he would be that guy. He is having a good season. He does know what he's doing. He is comfortable in this situation. You know, it's not a long-term answer here. The other problem is conversations about what the Avs truly need to make themselves a Stanley Cup contender right now. I'm not sure that a middle 6 wing is high enough on that list when they only have so much cap space to work with. At $5 million for Zucker, they would need Buffalo to retain, and that always raises the price a little bit. And even at $2.5 million, look, that's a great bargain for who Zucker is and how he's played this season. But all the other pockmarks that are there, it makes it a tricky fit.
If the Avs weren't desperate for a center that fits a lot of roles more than just maybe production for them, I think Zucker could be significantly higher on this board. But at least on paper, it's just hard to fit more wings onto this Colorado Avalanche team. Even if you're looking at some of the guys that have underperformed, there are more immediate holes that need to be filled.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just to add, I like his passion. He plays with passion. You know what I mean? And you can't teach that. And again, coming to Denver would be very familiar. Obviously, being a University of Denver product and a Vegas-born kid, that's rare you see that. The first Vegas-born kid to ever play in the National Hockey League. So he's, he plays with that little bit of an edge and passion, and but like I said, like you said, it's a luxury. You know what I mean? And he's not a sentiment. So it's kind of something else would have to fall for him to kind of fall there. You know what I mean? Before in my book, you know what I mean? So we'll see.
In a different world where the Avalanche were playing up to their potential, where Josh Manson had been a top 4 defenseman and Casey Middlestat had been an easy fit. He was on his way to a 55-point season, 60-point season, and we were all comfortable with that production. Jason Zucker would be a much higher priority for me right now, because that guy on your third line next to a Jack Drury and a Ross Colton, and you feel really good about that lineup. But because of the production issues that they've had, that's really the only reason. Is the Avs just only have so many trade assets and they only have so much cap space. They just have bigger fish to fry here, and that's the big. Even with the stylistic issues that I have with Zucker, I don't care. I love, as Eric mentioned, the passion that he plays with. He plays with that heart. He doesn't play a lot of quiet games, and he's got that goal-scoring acumen. He's on his way to, I believe, his 7th 20-goal season of his career right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what you need, and you're not tying yourself long-term to him. If it works, great. Then maybe you talk about it over the summer. If it doesn't work, then that sucks. But right now, those are the only reasons that I think Zucker is lower on our list than he otherwise could have been coming into this season.
I do wonder if it's cost prohibitive as well to ask Buffalo to retain, and you're moving out a guy that is on his way to potentially a 60-ish point season. Not going to come cheap. And the Avs only have so many assets to work with. So
the extra second they picked up in the Rantanen deal is really that extra bullet in the chamber where it's like that would help. And again, if we were in a different world where those guys were producing and we weren't talking about the Avs needing to save those assets for like a bigger impact guy, a 2nd round pick for Jason Zucker at the deadline, I would have zero. I wouldn't blink twice about it. 2 seconds would be a little rich for my blood, but that's the trade deadline. So it's probably just like you could argue bad fit, but also just a wrong time for this, but a really good player that would absolutely help them.
Who knows? Maybe it ends up being a off-season conversation, if not a rental today. But that's for a different time. This is the Trade Deadline Frenzy. We got a ton more players coming your way in this playlist or article. Number 19 on the Avalanche trade board is Nick Bjugstud. I think it's pretty safe to say Utah is out of the running for a playoff spot, so they are pretty likely to be selling. Bjugstud obviously has great size, pretty experienced center when you look at it. Is a guy that's name has been floated around before. Another guy connected to the Avs over the last couple of years even. Let's face it, maybe I'm living in a hostage of the moment situation here, but you feel like the Avs probably need some more depth scoring. Can Nick Bjugstud be that guy?
I think, the day that we're recording this, the way that we all feel right now about the Avalanche, Nick Bjugstud is like 5 on my list instead of 19 because you're looking at, one of my problems with Nick Bjugstud has always been, he's got great size, but he's always been a better offensive player than defensive player. And right now that sounds pretty great to me. So, I think with that in mind, if the Avalanche were to add that guy to their lineup, he's cheap. The acquisition cost can't be that much. Them not having any 3rd-round picks hurts because you start to think, is a 4th-round pick really going to get it done? And 2nd-round pick is too much. But, we also lived through the Lars Eller fiasco, so woohoo. With Nick Bjugstud, though, he's fine. I've never been a big fan. I've never thought like, hey, he's big, right? He's big and he's got pretty good hands and tight, and that's supposed to be a really good combination, but he puts it all together in such a blah manner that like, he's 19 on this list for a reason. There isn't a lot of like raw enthusiasm here, and this is getting Bjugstud would be more about raising the floor than the ceiling of this roster. And like, right now the floor is too low, but the ceiling's not high enough. So again, he's fine.
For what it's worth, a cap hit of $2.1 million, and it would be a rental. You probably don't have to pay extra to get retention or anything like that. The Avs could absorb that cap hit as is and still have room to do something else. So that's a factor. He is another right shot center if you're interested in that. Only okay in the faceoff circle though. So I don't know. There are some things that look interesting, but as with most of the people on the bottom half of this board, there are pretty likely better options out there if you can afford them.
I always liked him for the simple fact. This is a selfish fact. You know what I'm going to say here. Working with the Avs back then, we missed on them. You know, Bjugstud, Charlie Coyle, and Kevin Hayes all mixed. You know, all put in together, and we missed on the pick. We did. Now, with that said, I've always liked him for those reasons, because it was more like, he's one of them that got away and he's still playing. So that would have been a good pick. I like the fact that he's right. I like the fact that he's big. I agree with both of you. Does he put it all together? Not always, not all the time. That's why he's low on the list there. And that's why with the Avs, he would be more a depth piece. Now, I don't mind it if you have the luxury of going to add something. I like him better than any call-up the Avs would have. You know what I mean? To fill into that spot. And if it's a luxury you can afford and you can do, that's why I think he belongs on that board for those reasons. I don't think he belongs on that board to come in and fix all the problems that the Avs have right now. But it's certainly a better feeling of a depth piece where you go to bed a little bit better at night, knowing that, you know, you will face some injuries a little bit at times. And, you know, I do believe that he can fill in, and he's been decent in the times that, you know, he's gone to teams to help out a little bit, like Edmonton or, you know.
Well, and like, we're talking about a guy that has averaged about 12 goals per season throughout his career. He's a decent depth goal scorer having a bad year. His shooting percentage right now is 5.5% as of this recording. His 15 points in 50 games. We're not talking about a guy that immediately is jumping off the ice as oh man, he's gonna make them so much better right away. His game would need to take a turnaround, and that's another reason why I think that he's lower on this list. Is the year that he's had is just not as good. Coming into this season, had you said which would you rather prefer, like a Jake Evans or a Nick Bjugstud, I would have probably leaned towards that being a much closer conversation, given the seasons that they've had. You're probably saying, well, Jake Evans is the runaway pick there because he's playing great and he's a great fit and all these things. But with Bjugstud going from, you know, a 40-point season last year and a 20-goal season to he has 5 goals and 15 points through 50 games right now. Like,
there's a reason one of those guys is number 19 on this list and one of those guys is literally number 1. So,
yeah.
Yeah, look, again, I think some of the picks at the bottom of this board, some of the options out there are more of maybe the Avs made some other moves and have some leftover space that they want to make that one more extra move with. And maybe that's where a Bjugstud starts to make more sense for the Avalanche. He's what's out there, and they have enough to, as Eric put it, maybe it makes you sleep a little bit better at night if you could add that one extra piece at the end of the deadline. So we'll see. Plenty more to get into here for potential Avalanche targets. So keep on looking through AJ's trade piece, or if you're on YouTube, just click the next video in the playlist. Trade deadline frenzy continuing on here. Next up, another forward on the list in Brandon Tanev. Obviously, definitely some fun drama history with blowing the kiss to the Avs in that playoff series. A hard-working depth forward, there's no doubt about it. For me personally, I think he should be lower on our trade board, though. I don't see him solving a lot of the needs that the Avs have in their depth. Not saying he's not a good depth player. I do think he can answer that. But looking at what he is for the price of that contract, I'm just not convinced. Can you guys sell me on it?
Yeah, Eric, can you sell him on it?
Yeah, for me, if for one reason only, they call him Turbo. He does have an engine. He does go. He leaves it all out on the line. He brings a little bit of different mentality than what they have up front a little bit right now. The lack of energy. This is an energy player, can kill penalties. Engaged in playoffs. We all saw that 2 years ago, like you said, with the kiss. That I like the kiss. No, I'm old school. I don't like that stuff. But still, he's engaged and he's passionate and he is involved in the game. So for me, that's why it's a yes. If you can find a way, again, all comes down to the acquisition, all that kind of stuff. Kind of like they're luxuries to have with those types of salaries, right? That a guy like that brings. But he certainly would be a guy with a lot more bite than some of what the Avalanche have right now at this time, up front in that type of position, in my book.
Look, when you're talking about more passion and more energy, I don't know about his footwork, but this is a guy that I think can definitely help. His 9 goals this year. I know there are games played considerations, but the 9 goals that he has right now is as many or more than Casey Middlestat, Devon Toews, Jonathan Drouin, Logan O'Connor, Parker Kelly, Jack Drury, even Ivan, Juuso Parssinen, Sam Girard, Miles Wood, Sam Malinsky. He has more goals, as many or more goals than all of those players. So you're talking about a high energy, passionate, physical forward that gets after it every single shift all the time. The intangibles are maxed out here. Skill-wise, he's getting worse. The decline is very real. I'm not sitting here trying to convince you that he needs to sign a multi-year deal after the season. But for right now, for this year, I mean, just getting a guy that goes out there and gets his heart rate up, gets the blood flowing a little bit, and might be able to drag his team into the fight a little more often than what we're seeing out of this current Avs roster. Yes, please.
All well and good if he was a center.
Yeah. Fair enough.
All great. His goal scoring rates are actually pretty good. The problem is he's had one healthy year in the last 5 seasons.
Yeah, the rugged play style comes at a cost.
Yeah, for sure.
The cost has been his body holding up as he's gotten into his 30s. But it shouldn't be, again, acquisition cost. It shouldn't be very expensive, and you're talking about a player that identity wise would fit them really nicely. So Tanev, for me, I just love the guy. I would agree with your original point on this. He's too high on our list compared to like Trent Frederic.
Exactly. I'd have both Frederic and Donato ahead of him, I think. But
fair enough. We also live in a little bit of a different world
than we did 3 weeks ago. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. When we made this list and started working off of it, we feel just a touch differently about the Avalanche. Yeah,
you see my eyes?
Keep doing that. It's freaking me out, man.
That's what he does.
You need more head tilt. He leans.
Yeah,
his
he's got
Is he go like that?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that kills me.
I'm with you on he's too high on our list, but the rest of this, I'm very sold on Brandon Tanev.
Here's the thing that could sell me on him. If you could get him for a reasonable acquisition cost with Seattle retaining, I'm in. The $3.5 million cap hit is hard to navigate for the Avs for a guy that's going to give you what Tanev's going to give you. So if you can get him half retained, it would be what, 1.75 for, I don't know, a fourth. I would do that all day.
Yeah, because right now they're sitting at just under $5 million in cap space.
Mhm.
The 1.7 is something that you can live with and gives room for them to continue to do work. The full boat removes you from
A
most
lot of
other moves,
conversations. Yep.
and that's not worth it at all, given that he would be like Brandon Tanev or Ryan Donato. You would have to go with Ryan Donato, right? Just in terms
Yep.
of what the Avs right now in this moment, what they need more, it's Ryan Donato. But in terms of their actual fit and how he would play in that locker room and how he would seamlessly transition in there, it's one of the better fits, and I think that's ultimately why he ended up as high on this list as he did.
Yep.
Because he would show up on day one and be exactly who you traded for, and there wouldn't be a lot of, well, he doesn't know the systems and he hasn't adjusted. He's been around the block, he knows what he's doing, and it doesn't matter what system he's being asked to play. His head coach is going to him and saying, all right, man, I need Turbo, just go and run into some dudes, take the puck and create a little bit of havoc. It does the rest of it, honestly, it's just window dressing.
When you're talking about a trade target, a simple game like that usually translates pretty easy. So that's something to consider as well. Plenty more to come, more defensemen, more forwards, more centers, you name it, on the Avs trade board. So let's keep it rolling into the next guy on the list.